Welcome to FOB TV, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist and lecturer here at TCS, and I want to welcome everyone to the show today. My guest is Bob Parisi. He's the head of cyber solutions North America at Munich Re Group. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Kevin, thanks for having me. It's exciting.
Now, where are you calling in from, Bob?
So I'm coming in from one of our private rooms in our New York office. So you got to find a nice quiet space.
All right. So is it snowing in New York today?
No, not yet. We had a little snow. Last week, and we've got more snow coming. But it's winter. So
are you a snow guy or are you, a sun guy?
I like all the seasons. I like warm summers. I like cold winters. I've grown up in the Northeast. I want my 4 seasons.
All right. Love it. Well, let's jump in today. We have at TCS, we've put together some of our thought leaders, 7 predictions around cybersecurity. And one of the things we wanted to do is reach out to experts and say, here's what we're seeing. Do you see a similar thing? Do you agree or disagree? Or do you see it from a different perspective? Now, you're coming to us not as a CISO, but with a unique perspective. Why don't you share that with the audience?
Yeah, sure, Kevin. So I'm responsible for helping clients ensure their cybersecurity risk. So if I had to put it in a C-suite connection, I'm coming at it more from the point of view of the CFO than the CISO. We talk to the CISOs to help us evaluate what our policyholder risk looks like, but it's coming at it more from a board and governance perspective than a pure technology perspective.
Very interesting. So let me just jump in here and ask you, what role do you see Gen AI playing in cyber threats? I mean, we read about Gen AI in all kinds of different contexts. What about cyber threats? What do you see in here?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the glass is half full and the glass is half empty, right? I think it certainly has created new vulnerabilities. It has created opportunities and tools that threat actors can use more quickly, right? They can become more efficient and a little more lethal. On the glass half full side, though, AI allows the CISOs or gives the CISOs some new tools that they can use to defend their company. So like any technology, it's exploitable. It's got imperfections. But this one, I think, also has some teeth to fight back. So these are all my opinions, not Munich's, right? Is that the speed of adoption is potentially problematic. I saw a great analogy that someone said it took hundreds of years for the printing press to become socially adopted. Gen AI is happening in real time. So that's kind of our issue. When we talk to companies, our issue isn't, are you using it or aren't you using it? It's everyone's using it. Tell us how you're bringing it into your company and your systems. And let us understand that you're treating it like every other new technology and you're doing it carefully and cautiously and thoughtfully.
Man, 2 points. Putting myself in the shoes of an insurance or a reinsurance company and thinking, how do you go about helping provide policies and protection for something that's brand new? Without, you can't just open the actuary book and look at the numbers and say, okay, here's my policy price. It's just, how do you even start?
So we don't have hundreds of years of weather data, right? And I think what really has characterized the cyber insurance space has been they've been nimble and they've been flexible. So it's much more of a proactive interaction with the client, conversation with the CISO. We do some pen and paper, submissions where they fill out fill out an application that follows along with either the ISO standard or the NIST framework, and then we usually follow that up with the CISO to kind of validate that the answers they gave in the paper are consistent with how the CISO, the person who's controlling it, is viewing this. But we view it, as I said, kind of more from a governance perspective than from a pure technology perspective. Mm-hmm. We're not doing penetration testing. We're not doing audits. We really are trying to get a sense of what's the DNA of this company in terms of handling information security, and not to kind of do a spoiler alert. We really are looking at, is this company resilient? Do they have that deep moat and that high wall? But are they also prepared to deal with the problem when that threat actor, that barbarian, swims the moat and climbs the wall?
Wow. Yeah, so we're going to get into a little bit of all that. So in the predictions that came out of our TCS thought leaders here around cybersecurity, prediction 1, and then I'll ask for your feedback. So prediction 1, the influence of Gen AI and cybersecurity is on the rise. Gen AI is transforming organizational operations, but it is also exploited by cyber criminals. We just talked about a lot of this. So what's your feedback? Do you agree with that or see it different?
14 years of Jesuit education, my answer is always it depends, right? So I've been around long enough where you secured the computer system by locking the door as you left the room. And since then, we've had software as a service, cloud, IoT, Gen AI, bring your own device. All of that has been either the next big thing that was going to help us explode as an economy or was going to kill us all, right? So I think AI and Gen AI in particular has that same, it's two faces or two sides of the same coin. It does create additional vulnerability. It does create additional exploits. It does enable threat actors. Same token, it is a tool that CISOs can use to better defend their company. So I think it's used properly. It's going to be an amazing tool. Abused or taken over for nefarious purposes, it's a pretty nasty weapon.
Yeah. I have a favorite series of books here written by a French professor and philosopher. His name is Paul Virilio. And he said, any new invention or innovation comes in a duplicate form, which is an accident. So you develop an airplane, motorized flight in an airplane, you've automatically created an airplane wreck. If you create a steamship, you create a steamship that sinks. If you create one that floats, you create one that sinks. So everything comes with its reverse side.
Kevin, you're describing where I live, right? There's no one's going to build a bridge without ensuring the construction, without ensuring its operation. No director is going to sit on a board without knowing that there's insurance against the risk. So, insurance, we live in that residual risk. That's the way I would describe it, is that there's policies, there's procedures, there's technology that manage that risk or control that risk across the spectrum. But there's always that end of that spectrum where an additional policy, an additional procedure is not reducing the risk. In fact, it may cause more risk. And it's that residual risk where insurance lives. And we're there to be that kind of third leg of the stool for, building codes, NIST frameworks. Follow the rules, do things right. Stuff happens. There are fortuitous events you can't predict. And that's where insurance comes into being, to help transfer that financial risk so that the economy can move forward.
Mm-hmm. So prediction number 2, cloud security is crucial. As cloud computing adoption continues to accelerate, organizations need to implement strong security protocols, things like encryption, access controls, continuous monitoring. Thoughts and insights on prediction number 2.
I think that's one of the truisms, right? You could put anything in, you could cross out cloud adoption and say bring your own device, quantum computing, and you could add then say has to be more security, aware. I think cloud security, it used to be software as a service. It's had a lot of different names, but you're correct. The adoption is huge because there's really kind of monumental gains and some not small efficiencies or financial gains to be had by moving things off-prem and into the cloud. What you're finding is on point, though, because just moving it into the cloud doesn't mean it's secure. Mm-hmm. What I hope is that as many companies move into the cloud, they also say that they do it intelligently and thoughtfully, not just, hey, it's cheaper, let's do that. At Munich Re, we've actually partnered with Google Cloud Services that, for a variety of reasons, but not the least of which is they provide us real-time feedback on clients who are applying for the insurance permissively. We don't just get feed. The client has to say it. That allows us to see how they are configured inside the cloud to be more transparent underwriting. So what we're hoping that does is also encourages the clients to take advantage of more of that what I describe as the premium services that cloud providers offer. If you're a small company and you move something off-prem and into the cloud, take advantage of the fact that you now have access to a whole host of services that replicate the hierarchy that Fortune 1000 companies have that you don't have. So there's a lot of good to be had around this. Done precipitously or with the thought that let's just save some money, it's as bad as any other bad decision.
And now there's all kinds of architectures that involve hybrid models and other things, isn't there, which just complicate that. Okay, so let's move into prediction number 3. Elastic supply chains will be relevant for operational integrity. So in 2025, organizations will need flexible, resilient supply chains due to changing geopolitics and partner ecosystems. Is there fast changing geopolitics?
Yeah, no, I hadn't noticed.
What's your thoughts on that?
So we look at kind of two supply chains when we write cyber insurance. We look at the software supply chain, and then we look at the hardware, the hard economy supply chain. Where am I going to get my raw materials? Where am I going to get my the vendors that I need to use? And that vendor management, from where do I get my pens and paper to where am I getting my software updates, is huge. It goes back to the time when we would, and this is quaint and naive, but when we thought that just in time versus just in case was the be all end all of supply chain management. Not being able to function is now dependent on a lot of things. You can be physically able to move forward, but if the vendor that supplies that one key piece isn't there, then your assembly line grinds to a halt. And it might not be because there was geopolitical activity. It might be because that vendor system got hacked, so now they can't supply you. Your systems are fine. So disruption to supply chains, from everything from the nation state hack to just a glitch in their system, can ripple down or ripple up, however you want to look at it, and cause you being one of our insureds, can cause them a significant business interruption. So we view supply chain management and vendor management as one of the key points that we look at and talk to potential insureds about.
I can imagine a time when the average company will have digital agents that simply scan forward looking for potential risk by scanning daily news, and any other kind of data. And just every morning, rather than you paying third-party companies to do this, you will also have your own agents that can just give you a morning report on what to be looking for and what to anticipate.
What we like seeing in companies is obviously proactivity, right? Not reactivity. And while Munich Re is an enormous company, I focus on large single risk, so large multinational companies. I would say there's not one out there that isn't being very proactive in terms of understanding what that threat network is, not just the vulnerabilities to technology, but is there going to be a bad hurricane season? Is one particular nation state targeting a particular supply chain? What's going on in chip manufacturing? There's those companies have the need to be so proactive because they are so widespread. And there's nothing that doesn't, multinational means multinational. Something happens in one country is going to affect your operations in another. So when we talk to companies, we really do look at, do they have a process and procedure at kind of the macro level? And that's where it starts. And with vendor management and supply chain, it starts there. And then it moves down into the various business continuity programs for the different operating units and subsections.
Let's move on to prediction number 4. Emerging business models will underscore the need to be secure by design. At a time when digital technologies, IoT capabilities, and advanced connectivity are driving all kinds of new business models, organizations must secure their value chains to ensure these businesses are safe by design. What's your feedback? What's your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. And as I said, looking back with kind of 30 plus years working in the cyber and the information security space, I can remember a time when something would get rolled out and then it would be forced into some sort of cyber security parameters, or they would say, all right, we'll now wrap this other product around it. The new application, the new activity itself, what had no security components to it, it just relied upon some external third party or extra app to make it secure. I think anyone that is rolling anything out, deploying any new tool, developing any new system, has to have a security awareness. Now, it can be, the function can be, yes, we're going to put this and we are going to create a security, defense in depth around it. And it might not be secure itself, but we understood that these things are going to be part of it, or we're building security into it, especially if you're dealing with, say, privacy or connecting to third parties. I don't know how you move forward without that level of awareness. How it gets deployed, very different, but that level of awareness has to be there. For us, it would be a non-starter.
In our futurist group here at TCS, we see a transformation happening within vertical industries where it's not so much about siloed individual companies. It's about their complete ecosystem, all of the participants that support that particular business value chain. And looking at that, you don't necessarily even anticipate who all those players are going to be that are necessary to interconnect to make your business possible. But it's a big deal. You need to be building for ecosystem connection and all kinds of new sources of data, the sharing of data, the building of new products and value chains. So it's a very interesting time.
When you look at the interconnectivity between companies, that's one of the parts that scares me the most. It's because I could talk to a company, we could go through the submission process, and I could be very comfortable that they are doing everything right. But then you look at a lot of the losses that the cyber insurance world has paid, and it came from, the first is kind of the obvious, people clicking on things they shouldn't. But then after that, it's third parties. It's the HVAC guy that comes in. It's the guy that, it's something gets, the guy who updates your copier, which is now remotely connected.
Yeah.
It's a vendor that you are connected to. So that third-party connectivity is enormous. And if you don't worry about security at every level of what you're doing, that's a problem. Now you're going to prioritize, and there's always going to be a hierarchy of these are the crown jewels, and these are the essential business systems, and those will get hardened more than, say, just the informational website. But to not look at it for one area, thinking, well, nothing will ever happen there, that's kind of Murphy's Law. That's the first place it's going to happen.
Yeah. So prediction number 5, cybersecurity mesh architecture will pave the way for zero trust security. So organizations are moving from these traditional security models to zero trust architectures. Are you seeing that same thing, Bob?
So Kevin, now you're slipping into the technical that where I start to you start to outrun my ability to respond. Having a general understanding of what that means, I think it depends on the company, and it's going to depend on the system or the application that you're talking about, economy or the world writ large, where there's a lot about zero-day exploits, and that's kind of the flip side of zero trust, right? And I'm very much an adherent of kind of trust but verify, which is, again, in that model. I think anything that deals with a dispersed activity or a dispersed look, so that you are not just worried about or not just focused on, well, let's just look at what's coming through this pipe. That's not something that's going to be helpful. But zero trust is great. Unfortunately, we don't always see that. If you can verify every person or every company that you're dealing with, that'll solve some problems. It's not always technically possible, though.
Yeah.
And the devil's in the details. As I said, we see a lot of the losses that we've seen, or I've seen over kind of the 25 years, have come from the way Verizon describes it as unsophisticated exploits, which are people doing stupid things. So deploy zero trust technology, and then hope like heck everyone actually uses it correctly.
Got it. Prediction number 6, CISOs will adopt an automation-first approach to managed detection and response. And so, for example, modern managed detection and response combines security information and event management and security operations centers and security orchestration and automation response and extended detection and response, threat hunting, threat intelligence, and various attack simulations, all managed automatically. So do you see people moving toward that automation first approach?
I think this goes back to our discussion around the first finding around the use of AI. AI allows for a lot of automation that wasn't capable or wasn't available to CISOs before then. Just something as simple as looking at logs that they never had enough eyes to look at all the logs. So to the extent that you can be more proactive because you've got better tools to look at these things and to automate them, yeah, that's great. My only concern is, and maybe this is, I've watched The Terminator too many times. Let's not automate everything, right? Let's make sure we still have smart people looking at this. But yeah, I don't view automation as a problem. I view it as, it's the next step and it's the next way to better do what we're doing, as long as, and again, as long as somebody's watching it.
Yes.
I also wouldn't abdicate all authority to automate it, right? Someone's got to be installing this. Someone has to have a process or a program. There has to be a governance or guidance around how you're deploying it, where it makes sense. occasionally it might not make sense. And as long as you're doing it intelligently and according to the plan and the process that you've agreed on, it's going to free these CISOs up to then look and think more creatively around how to protect the organization, because they're not having to kind of open and close the window themselves. That's, it's opening and closing when the sensor says it's hot or cold, to use a bad analogy. So I look at as an opportunity and a way to make companies more secure and more resilient.
Thanks for that. So prediction number 7, our last in this long list: cyber resilience will be essential for business security. A cyber resilience strategy is crucial for organizations to handle unexpected cyber incidences. I think we talked a little bit about this already, but let's talk about cyber resilience. Do you see that as one of those very important things that everybody's going to be focused on?
Yeah, I see this as running through everything else we've talked about. Mm-hmm. There was a time when if you had that hard, crunchy perimeter, people just assumed it was all good, right? You were fine. You lock the door when you leave the computer room, but that's not the case, right? And I think it became very apparent in the early days in the pandemic, when all of a sudden you had to move most of your organization off-prem, and that was a scary time. If you can't manage to the crisis from an insurance perspective, we evaluate what their technology looks like, what their security looks like, but we also want to see, do they have that business continuity plan? Do they have that virtual red binder to deal with the problem when it occurs? Because we've seen a real dollar for dollar relationship between a company that is resilient is going to lose and going to lose less money and going to recover quicker than a company that isn't resilient.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Bob, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience and your very unique vantage point, being in the reinsurance area there, to be able to take a look at this from a very broad perspective. So I want to thank you so much for that, Bob.
My pleasure, Kevin. I look forward to talking to you about the predictions next year.
Yes, thank you.